this time I would like to introduce our opening speaker, Brian Burns, who's Senior Vice President in charge of Marketing and Sales with the NBA's Oklahoma City Thunder. Brian joined the Thunder organization as Vice President of Sales and Marketing in April of 2005 and was promoted to his current position in June of 2006. His responsibilities include oversight of ticket sales, retention and operations, luxury suite sales and hospitality, marketing and communication strategies such as brand management, advertising, promotions, graphic designs, digital media, e-commerce, and event presentation. In other words, he does everything that nobody else wants to do, it sounds like. He has absolutely been a great addition to our community. He's been able to capitalize on the unique platform of being Oklahoma's first permanent professional sports team. He's led development of unique programming to extend the Thunder brand throughout the state. Previously, Brian served as Executive Vice President of Business Operations for the NHL's Phoenix Coyotes. That's the hockey guy. Prior to joining the Coyotes, Burns built nearly 10 years of experience with the NHL Dallas Stars and Major League Baseball's Texas Rangers. A recipient of Oklahoma Magazine's 40 Under 40 Award, he is actively involved in the Thunder Foundation, Allied Arts, National Sports Forum, and the Oklahoma City All Sports Association. A graduate of St. Mary's University in San Antonio, he and his wife Ashley reside in Edmond, and we're honored to have Brian here. Please join me in welcoming Brian Burns.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. I'm going to walk around a little bit this morning, so bear with me. It's a little more comfortable for me to do that. Thank you, Carl, and on behalf of Clay Bennett, our managing partner, and Sam Presti, our general manager, it's certainly my privilege to be able to represent the organization and tell our story this morning. There's another sincere thank you that has to start the discussion, and that is to Anthony Morrow, Reggie Jackson, and all the folks that played their butts off last night, because it makes it a lot easier to talk about Thunder basketball. They're coming off a win, right? Yeah. Anybody watch the game last night? All right, well, we appreciate that. It's an interesting opportunity to talk about our business and to share it in this forum. One of the great things that I heard just in a brief time this morning in the hallway and just kind of circulating through the room, I heard a lot of great expressions about, I'm going to be a sponge today. Can't wait to really learn something today. I hope there's something that's going to make a difference today. And I thought, what a powerful way to start your day, to think about how you want to improve and how you want to develop and how you want to have this continuing education, continuing learning. And it really resonated with me because we think that's what the kind of ethos is of our organization. And one of the great things about working for the Thunder, particularly today, November of 2014, is that we're going through probably one of our greatest challenges, one of our probably more adverse conditions as an organization since we formed a little over 6.5 years ago. This is an organization that's largely seen success, right? On the heels of the Hornets being here for 2 seasons and building basically a foundation of support for professional sports entertainment, the Thunder arrived and there was this huge fanfare at that time, right? The community had been through about 16 to 17 years of almost a straight line of momentum and economic curation coming off that first MAPS program. The second MAPS program for kids had already been up and running. The third one was actually on the horizon. It was actually postponed for a year to establish a big league city fund to attract the team and to give us the resources to build our business. And so there was great optimism and great momentum. And we fell right in the middle of that. And we were able to build our business really on a really strong foundation in the summer and fall of 2008. And then, of course, you've seen our story. If you followed us to any degree, we've been pretty good. We've had a team that's competed in 5 of the last 6 years in the NBA playoffs. In 3 of those 5 years, we went to the Western Conference Finals. And in 1 of those years, we went to the NBA Finals. That's a hell of a resume for any organization in our business. In fact, we were reminded of how fragile that is when we watched the NBA playoffs last year and we saw the Washington Wizards, an organization that's been around for 40 some odd years. They hadn't been to the playoffs in 22 years. Major market, good funding, history, heritage, and it's been 22 years since that fan base experienced what we now maybe take for granted. And it was a real powerful reminder for us that, this is fleeting. But that's just a buzzword, right? When you sit in our office as recently as September of 2014, because we don't know what that really looks like. And yet we've built the whole foundation of our business on sustainability and the long-term value proposition. And yet we really don't know if what we're doing day to day will really establish that and really provide a long-term success that we're after. Right? We're going to talk a lot about that over the next 30 to 40 minutes, and I'll share some things that we think about and how we shape the development of the organization. But we've really never been tested. So you might find it somewhat ironic or counterintuitive to think that if I told you today is maybe one of the best, most energetic days in the office, you might find it surprising, and yet I'm telling you the absolute truth. There's more energy and more optimism and more creativity in our office today than there's ever been. And it's because we're embracing adversity. We're embracing the opportunity to take a challenge and turn it into an opportunity. And I think that forms maybe the foundation of a great organization. And it comes back to great leadership. Leadership that has vision, leadership that has confidence, leadership that has a backbone. And I hope that I can illustrate those things through the course of this morning. You walk into last night before the team plays a game in Boston, and we're 2-6. I can't remember the last time we were upside down on the win-loss column. 2-6. And somewhere between 3/5 and 4/5 of our starting lineup are wearing walking boots and casts and crutches, and they're riding around in one-wheel wheelchairs. It looks like a MASH unit, right? And two of those guys are two of the best players in the whole world, not just our team. And so there's a lot of concern about the organization, right? A lot of concern about team performance, a lot of concern about the expectations that we have for the season, right? A lot of questions, a lot of concern, a lot of doubt, right? And that's really forced us to think about, what are we really delivering upon? What's the brand promise? What are we really trying to deliver? Because I'll go back now and tell you the story of how we developed this thing, right? We knew from the very get-go, and this comes from the leadership of our ownership group, right? It's made up of 8 men, all of whom were born and raised in this community, at least until last year when Mr. Ward sold his investment to Mr. Keisner. But in 2008, these 8 guys, born and raised in Oklahoma City, right? Built their businesses here, raised their families here, great philanthropic investments in this community. This team was always about being additive to the larger picture. It was always about improving the economic diversity of our community. It was about providing some cultural resonance. It was about improving the quality of life. It was about giving us another notch in the belt when we talked about the momentum and the renaissance of Oklahoma City. And we've built our business on that platform. Now you might be surprised to hear that, right? We're not talking about building a basketball team. We're not talking about building a sports and entertainment property that fits into a little niche. We're talking about being fully integrated into what everybody in this room is trying to accomplish. And that's great things for our city and our state. And we've always taken that to heart. And we think that it helps us run our business and operate our business in a way that might be different than what the other NBA teams or other professional sports teams look like. We'd like to think, when we grow up, that we might look like the Green Bay Packers. Or we might look like the St. Louis Cardinals. If you meet somebody from St. Louis and you ask them about it, it's a baseball town, right? Or maybe the San Antonio Spurs to some extent, right? That's a market that looks a lot like ours in terms of its composition, and it's there's one professional sports team there that's had a long history of success. That's what we think we could look like someday, and we've always tried to build ourselves against those principles. And so the notion of sustainability was really at the kind of forefront of what we wanted to build our business practices around and build a decision-making around, long term. Okay, so there's 3 core tenets that were established in the summer of 2008, and we dust these off every year. We look at them. They continue to be as strong today in 2014 as they were in 2008. And the first one is this notion of sustainability, right? You have to face facts. We're the 47th largest market in the United States, right? That's measured by your DMA, your marketing territory. It's a media scoring system. 47th largest market, right? There's only 30 teams in the NBA. There's 2 in New York, there's 2 in LA. So there's 28 unique markets. And so if you start to think about who are we competing against for revenue to be able to invest in a roster that puts a team on the floor that can compete, we're up against a pretty tall order. right? We're going against markets that have significantly more population base, significantly more corporate support, maybe more history and more of a foundation. And yeah, we're going to try to do that in Oklahoma City. And the notion was we're going to have to work a little harder, maybe be more efficient, be more creative, more entrepreneurial in our approach. 1 + 1 would have to equal 3 for us to be able to invest all the resources against the team to put a product on the floor that can sustain that and earn your trust and your confidence as a consumer, but give us a chance to be successful. We're the 27th largest market in the NBA. Right? Only New Orleans and Memphis, I think, are smaller than us. And the way that you define that in terms of the limitations is that there's 1.4 million folks or so, 18 years and over, that live in this DMA. That's really the marketing box for us, if you will. Right? We got to sell our tickets, and we got to promote our business, and we got to create consumerism within a pretty limited pool of candidates. Right? We got to find within that 1.4 million people, we got to find enough people that have the discretionary time and money and interest. Right? So you start thin slicing that audience, and you start to think about how would that look if you were thin slicing Los Angeles as a market, or Dallas, or Chicago, or these markets that we're competing against. So we knew very early on we were going to have to work harder and smarter. And the notion of sustainability had to guide every decision that we were going to make. And so there's a couple thoughts I have in sharing that. It gets back to leadership, it gets back to having a backbone as an organization, it gets back to having a vision. When you think about what I've just established, and that every dollar is going to count, and we got to put everybody that's willing to be a fan, we got to put them in the boat, and then we got to keep them in the boat year after year, right? Because we don't believe that we can survive churn. We can't have a high rate of non-retention or non-renewal in our business. We're going to need to keep everybody in the boat. That's our attitude. We have to really think about this notion of sustainability, right? So in 2012, we're on the run towards the NBA Finals, but we don't know we're going there yet. This is in the middle of the season. But the team's playing well. We're not quite sold out on our tickets. We're not quite sold out on our marketing inventory yet. But we're headed there. But we're not there yet. So in a very aggressive sales environment. And in our business, we think about the building and the environment as much as a brand and marketing resource as it is a revenue tool. Okay? And specifically when we look at the courtside environment, folks that sit on the front row, that's an expression of Oklahoma City. That's an expression of our brand. It's not just a seat, a very expensive seat that generates a lot of revenue for us. But it's as much about the brand. Okay? I'll give you a little economic insight there. There's 500 seats courtside. There's 18,300 seats in the building. Right? So that's 3% of the audience sits courtside. Yet we drive 31% of all of our ticket revenue out of that 3%. Right? So when you have an opportunity to sell that inventory, you take it. Right? Well, in 2012, as we were starting to really kind of find our stride, get our momentum going, we had a consumer that was ready to buy 4 courtside seats. Okay? I'll let you do the math. They're $1,500 a seat per game. We play 43 home games. Okay? Somebody can scratch that out and you'll see there's a lot of numbers there. We went through a process to vet this particular buyer. We ended up turning him down. We turned him down because we learned about his intent. And his intent was to go to about half the games. And as a business owner, we were hoping he was going to tell us he was going to entertain clients and guests and use it for business development. But that wasn't his objective. His objective was to just sell them off to a broker and kind of recoup some of his investment to keep his funding going year after year. And the light bulb went off in our head at that moment and said, that doesn't work for us. Because the last thing we want is Kevin Durant out there competing, playing hard, trying to get a loose ball, keep the possession going, trying to win a game for us. And he's going to stand at the out-of-bounds line and inbound the ball, and he's going to stand right next to somebody wearing a Houston Rockets jersey. Or a Lakers jersey. That's in our home court. Right? So we have this attitude that we're going to protect the brand, we're going to protect the environment as much as we're going to generate revenue. Now, we don't do that for every seat in the house. Right? So that's impractical. But in the courtside environment, where it's as much about what's creating the best experience for our players and coaches to be successful, we micromanage that. We told this guy no. Now imagine what it's like to go tell the salesperson he can't close that sale, okay? That guy's already spent his commission check, and he hadn't like it yet. That takes a lot of backbone as an organization. It takes a lot of backbone to do that, particularly when you think about small market, every dollar counts, we're competing, we're aggressively selling, we're intentionally saying no to some of our best, most valued inventory because it didn't meet our corporate ethos. That takes a lot of backbone. I think that's leadership. I think that says a lot about our behavior as a business. And roughly about the same time, we had the same thing happen in our sponsorship group. These are folks that go out and sell business-to-business partnerships. Right? This is about putting Integrance as a partner into our building and into our marketing inventory and saying, hey, our brand and your brand look great together. Let's try to help each other market and sell product or sell service or to raise the level of consumerism. And we had a client that was approaching us, and that doesn't happen very often in our business, where people call us to spend that money. And they said, we want to put our brand next to yours. We want to buy a sponsorship package from you. And it was roughly about a $100,000 package. And as we learned more about their business, we learned that it didn't quite meet our standard of what the brand stood for. Now, this is a very reputable business. Of course, I'm not going to give you the name of it. But it's a reputable business. They have a lot of retail locations in the market. There's nothing wrong with that business. But it just didn't meet our values. It didn't look good for us to promote them next to us. And we said no. Same thing. Opportunity, inventory is available, right? And it's precious inventory, right? When we play a game, it's gone. You can't resell that ticket. When we played a game last night, those ads running on Fox Sports Oklahoma last night, they either run or they don't. So it's very perishable. And we're saying no. Again, you got to go back and tell that salesperson no, right? But we're creating a culture now, right? Now we're establishing our thought process. We're establishing our standard. And I think that that's helped carry us even to today, where we now know how we want to behave and how we want to think and how we want to build a brand that is highly valued. And that's why today is such a fascinating day to be a part of the Thunder. We're being tested for the very first time. We're being tested on all of these things we believe in, all these theories and methodologies of how we build the brand, and how we build the culture, and how we build an engagement with our consumer. Because quite frankly, everything that we're doing, we have no idea if it's working. I have no idea of all of our guest relations strategies and our one-to-one relationships and all of the training that we do and all of our relationship building practices that we spend a lot of time and money working on. A lot of intellectual thought goes into what are we trying to accomplish by putting people in the market to represent our business and brand. In a high-demand environment, it'd be easy to cut back on a lot of their services and customer experiences when you're at the level of achievement that we are. We have no idea if we're on the right path or not. Why? Because the team's been so darn good that we don't really know if 18,000 people are walking into that building tomorrow night because they love the Thunder experience and it's great value and it's a good, safe, comfortable environment where you know what the experience is going to be like. Or if you're riding the bandwagon because the team's good. Or if you're there because Kevin is one of the best players in the world and you don't want to miss your opportunity because he's playing in your hometown in this window of time. Right? We don't really know that yet. But we're finding out today. Like, this is a beautiful 6 weeks for this organization because we're looking at what it's like to not have Kevin Durant on the floor. And we're looking at what life looks like when you're 2-6 or 3-6 instead of 19-3. And can we sustain that? Are our television ratings still at the level that we've been able to develop over the last 4 or 5 years? Will there be 18,000 people in the building tomorrow night when it's 24 degrees outside and we're playing the Detroit Pistons, which quite frankly isn't a good team right now? And you know Kevin and Russell are going to be on the bench. Are we still going to put 18,000 people in the building? We think so. We think we've built something of value, but we really don't know. And it's been a thought process that's guided us from the very beginning. Back in 2008, this idea of this notion of sustainability was about, in that transition, as this team goes through a 20 to 40 year life cycle, team performance will do this, right? It will dip. It's easy to think about where you are when you're riding the cliff, right? Or you're riding the peak, but what happens when you're down the cliff, right? How are you going to behave? How are you going to think? What's your value system? And we've always tried to think about, would I make this decision today if the team wasn't in the Western Conference Finals, if we didn't have Kevin Durant? How would we behave? How would we be consistent in building our business and our platform? I think that comes back to great leadership, and I really commend Clay and Sam and the folks that lead our business to provide that direction to us. because it's really comforting to know that there's a long-term vision. Because in our business, it's really interesting to see what all the external influences can be. I can't tell you how many times over the last 5 years my phone rang with somebody from the New York NBA office telling us, what in the world are you guys doing? How come we don't see Kevin Durant on every piece of marketing collateral that you print? How are you not promoting Kevin Durant more as this iconic figure in our game and our sport? You're missing the boat. And we politely just hang that phone up and just stay true to our vision, because we're not trying to build equity and value in Kevin Durant. We're trying to build equity and value in the Thunder in Oklahoma City and what it means to the greater good. And we think that's what really kind of guides our thought process on this notion of sustainability. It also has a lot to do with how we build a brand, right? It kind of gets to my previous comment. We've been very intentional from the get-go that we were going to develop a relationship to the Thunder experience. And while Kevin Durant's a terrific talent and the team is winning a lot of games, quite frankly, there's a lot of other channels to consume Kevin Durant's greatness. You can go to YouTube, you can tune on to ESPN, you can watch Twitter and Instagram content flying around the universe, and you can get a lot of really great content that, quite frankly, they're better at than we are. ESPN's going to put a better highlight package together than the Oklahoma City Thunder did about last night's game. So we're going to let them do that. What are we going to focus on? We're going to focus on what we can control, what we can focus, right? So when you see marketing content, we're trying to tell a story. We're trying to tell a story of consistency and value. And it's about the experience of being a Thunder player or a Thunder fan or a Thunder consumer. And what's really cool about this moment in time is I think we're seeing it manifest itself right in front of our eyes. Right? What do we believe in? We believe in hard work. We believe in teamwork. We believe that 1 + 1 = 3. We believe that energy matters, that effort counts, more so than we worry about whether Kevin Durant's going to score 27 points or 23 points. Right? And what did you see last night if you watched the game on television? Great hustle, great energy, great effort from guys that really shouldn't even be on this team. One of the stars of the game last night, Lance Thomas, should not even be on this roster. He's here really out of emergency need. Ish Smith playing important minutes over the last couple of games. We just called him up in an emergency situation. He shouldn't even be here. And they're contributing. And what they're contributing to is just the continuation of what the Thunder looks like. Hard work, hustle, teamwork, playing for each other. Right? Those are buzzwords when you're winning. They're buzzwords that, quite frankly, people like to roll their eyes at and say, come on, I've heard enough about teamwork. I've seen Nick Collison take 1,000,000 charges. I got it. But the team's winning. It's a lot of fun. Right? When you take that away, what do you see? Right? You strip it down and you see the core. And what we see right now is something we really like. Something that's sustainable. Something we can count on. Something we can look at and say, when we deliver the Thunder experience to you, this is what it looks like. And it's pretty consistent. Last night didn't look that much different than having Russell and Kevin out there. That team played really hard last night. Did a lot of good things we should be proud of, things we're going to promote. That's marketing, that's branding, that's being true to ourselves. Second big pillar, important pillar for us, was about being authentic in the community. Right? Everybody in this room wouldn't be here if you didn't believe in community service. You wouldn't be here, you wouldn't be successful in your own right if you didn't think that there was something bigger than yourself. Right? So community service takes on a lot of different forms. Right? Volunteerism, fundraising, providing leadership. You heard Carl mention about the importance of the United Way. We're all involved in some way, shape, or form. Right? And we have a huge target on our back. I don't know how many 5K runs there are in Oklahoma City, but there must be 1 million. Because we get asked to donate to every one of them. And we can't. Because we can't be all things to all people. Much like Devin, Chesapeake, and some of these big brands in the market, they can't do anything. You got to find your niche. You got to find where you can make a difference. And what we believe we can do with the power of our brand, i.e. the NBA brand, then the Thunder brand, then the individual brands and the players, is that we can make a difference in areas that we think are important. So there's three more pillars. I like to count them. There's 3 other things we believe in. One is improving literacy. Why? Literacy is a big problem in our country. It's a big problem in our state and our city, right? We put a player on the Rolling Thunder book bus. We roll into an elementary school, and we pull a 3rd grade class out, and we put them on a book bus, and we have a player sit there and read a book to them, and then allow that child to take the book off the shelf and walk away with it as a donation from from American Fidelity and Thunder, we're changing that kid's life in that moment. We're inspiring him to read. We're saying, you know what, if it's okay for Reggie Jackson to read a book, it's okay for you to read a book. And by the way, it's fun. And it's inspiring. We get these beautiful letters from teachers and parents almost every day now that tell us that what an amazing impact we had on a kid because we told them that reading a book, going to the library was cool. Right? That helps our community. That makes a difference. And our players are great at that because that's an environment where they can be successful. Okay? Kevin Durant is not going to come give this speech today. With all due respect to Kevin, this isn't the best place to put him. Right? But I can put him in other environments where he can make a huge impact on our community. The second thing is about nutrition, eating healthy. Who better to give advice to kids to eat healthy than a world-class athlete? These guys know exactly, to the nth degree, what they're putting in their bodies. They know the composition of the nutrients. They know their balance between, one food versus the other. They know how much they're hydrating. They know 24 hours a day how they're fueling themselves for success. Okay? Now, granted, they have private chefs, and we have this scientific nutrition program that's assisting them, but it's a mindset. When they go into the community, they can help teach people. And we have programming that teach kids in schools how to make better decisions on eating healthy. We're making a difference, right? What's one of the biggest challenges in our state today? Obesity, right? We can help, and we choose to fund programs that are to that. And then the third thing is about physical fitness. Again, who better to provide inspiration to kids than a world-class athlete? It doesn't have to be basketball, by the way. Some of our fitness programs are about jump rope and running and just getting off the couch and getting on your feet, just being physically active for 60 minutes a day. That's an important thing that addresses a lot of challenges in our community. And again, when a player can do that, and the brand can get out and inspire that and create programming against that, that's a positive difference in our community. So those are three things that we really think about, care about, and invest in. And of course, as a community leader, we're going to do what we can whenever the community needs help, just like everybody in this room, right? So those tornadoes hit Moore, and they needed some help. We were there, just like everybody else was there. We were volunteering and raising money and writing checks, just like everybody else. But the other thing that we learned about ourselves in that moment was how well we had done the first pillar, create equity and value in the Thunder. The night of that tornado, we were sitting around a table, and we were asking ourselves, first, is everybody safe, right? We would do a checklist in our organization to make sure everybody that lived in that general vicinity was okay. The second thing was, let's mobilize a volunteer group. Let's figure out how to get in that community and get involved. And the phone rang, and it was the Red Cross. They said, we need your help. Can you retweet these important messages about phone numbers and where to find loved ones and who to ask for information? Can you just repost and retweet information for us? You're the most trusted voice in the market. Wow. That's pretty powerful. We learned a lot about ourselves in that moment, and we've learned now what a great voice we can have in times of need. The third thing is about providing exceptional guest service and guest experiences. Right? And it starts at the game. Right? We're working overtime every game. Preseason, regular season, postseason, doesn't matter. First row, last row, and out city. Everybody should have a personal, customized experience if you go to the Thunder game. And anytime you interact with us, you should feel like there's a one-to-one relationship. There are 50 some odd people that are Hooters down at I-240 and Penn last night watching the game with Rumble and Thunder Girls. And every one of those folks got a hug and an embrace from the organization last night. Every time we interact with people, we never take it for granted that we're developing a relationship, we're developing equity. Right? It's about recognizing the reward. I have this fictitious fan that kind of lives in the minds of the organization. Her name is Patty, and Patty lives in Ponca City. Does anybody know a Patty from Ponca City? Okay, good, because she doesn't exist. But Patty in Ponca City watched the game last night, right? She sat in her living room, she turned on Fox Sports Oklahoma, she watched the Thunder game. We don't know who she is. She doesn't live in our database, she doesn't buy tickets, she's not attending events. But she took time last night to probably wear a blue or orange scarf and sit down and watch the game. We challenge ourselves to think about how many Patties from Ponca City are there. And can we be very intentional and purposeful about creating a relationship with every Patty from Ponca City? Right? Because it's easy to score the folks that go to the games. It's easy to score the folks that buy our Devon's Kid Club membership. It's easy to find and score the folks that are consuming with us because there's a transaction and there's a collection of data. But we don't always know who's just being a fan. Who chose to put on a blue sweater last night to just go walk the dog? Who's wearing a Thunder ball cap to get on the plane and fly to go see a relative in Kansas City on Saturday? Those are intentional decisions of loyalty and support and interest. We want to continue to recognize and reward fans for having that behavior, because we think that inures to our long-term sustainability of building a fan base and building equity. So, if I could, take 2 minutes of your time and show you a quick video. It'll illustrate many of the things that I've been talking about. This would be the answer to the question, who's the Thunder? This is as much about the health of the business as much as it is about the heart of the business.
Can you hear my heart beating? Can you feel what I'm feeling? This is a call we can't ignore. We've come this far, but we want more. It's our time to take flight. We're gonna shake this town tonight. This is a call we can't ignore. In our hearts, the thunder roars. Together we will rise. This is our moment, time to stand up, hand in hand, with you forever. We'll rise together. You see the fire in our eyes. We're gonna take this down tonight. This is a call we can't ignore. Can you hear the thunder roar? Together we will rise. This is our moment, time to stand up, hand in hand, with you forever. Together we will rise. This is our moment, time to stand up here tonight. We'll rise forever. We'll rise together.
So that's a quick insight into just who we are. You saw a lot of references to kind of our business metrics. You saw a lot of illustrations to our service to the community. You saw a lot of focus on the connection with fans. It's very intentional that there's not a lot of basketball in there, right? That's the one thing we can't control. And I always find it interesting to kind of conclude on this note. Think about what you do. Think about the influence you have in your business. Think about the responsibilities that you have. And think about your product or service. In our case, we don't control the product. Really interesting, right? Don't know, win or loss, who's going to play well, who's going to play. We have no idea. And yet we've created a relationship with you that you're going to spend money, time, and you're going to be interested in the outcome of that experience. So we got to control everything else. We got to control everything else about the brand promise and about the experiences that you want and that we can deliver. And that's largely what makes up that illustration. So in the interest of time, I don't think there's, we do have some time. If there's some thoughts or observations or feedback, or if there's any specific questions from the group, we're happy to entertain that.
You guys extend your brand with the smaller businesses. When you go to the AMCLC meeting, you know that I'm the president of a small chamber, but we look for opportunities to help extend the small businesses with partners like you guys. How do you do that?
Now, the question originated with small businesses. How do small businesses connect to the Thunder? Because oftentimes it's about seeing the big brands in the market. And, well, that's an opportunity for us, right? Because you might be surprised to learn that we have over 110 different businesses that have a partnership with the Thunder and a sponsorship platform. right, where we've activated some kind of a business-to-business channel. And many of them are small, medium-sized businesses. It's interesting that maybe you're not aware of that. Maybe we should do a better job of that. It's not always about the quote-unquote big brands. Although, obviously, when you're Chesapeake and Devon and Integris and Love's, you're buying some of the more valued inventory, and so you're going to get more exposure. But we have over 110 businesses that are working with us, and we're always looking for the right partnerships. And that gets to my illustration earlier of turning down the client. We also want to invite others that do have a good story to tell, that do have an opportunity, that are looking for a business-to-business experience. We are a B2B platform as much as we are a consumer platform. There are a number of things happening in our game every night that is specifically targeted to the business community. And it's about creating opportunity and leverage and helping businesses use us as a tool to improve what they're trying to do. So there's a number of ways to do that. Obviously, the game experience is one of them. Television's another. We have a number of products and programs that go out to the community that, quite frankly, are never about the game experience. You know, where we take the Thunder experience out and we deliver experiences like last night. We held a watching party at a local restaurant. We partnered with OG&E this summer to create a mobile experience where we take a truck and literally drive around the state. And the objective is to hit all 77 counties and be able to bring the Thunder experience to regional and rural communities so that being a Thunder fan is not isolated or limited to just going to games. So we'd be looking for opportunities if we'd like to talk more about that. Business card in hand. She's prepared. Anyone else? Yes?
It seems to me if you're turning down some businesses that you're very value driven. And so I'd be curious if you could share a few of your values with us.
Sure. You're going to be surprised when I answer this question because you're not going to hear anything earth-shattering. You're going to hear a lot of common sense, right? We believe in being professional. We believe in having a respectful relationship with those that are having a relationship with us. We believe in being appropriate. We believe in delivering a first-class, highly detailed experience. Those are things we think about literally every day. I have colleagues in the room I just noticed, Amy and Christiana, that run our marketing team. They'll laugh when I say this, but literally every little project, we ask ourselves about the attention to detail. What are we doing with this? Why are we doing this? How are we doing this? That corner isn't quite perfect on that sign, right? Do you know that in every event that we have, when we have to put a table and a table skirt, that we have portable steamers that we take with us to steam out the wrinkles? We pay a lot of attention to those little things, and that guides decision-making in our organization. It's about doing the right thing in the right moment, being respectful, and never taking for granted that somebody is spending time, money, and interest with us. Now, those are obvious things, right? I didn't share anything that was necessarily earth-shattering. I would suspect that everybody in the room would describe their value system along those same lines. But I think it's really hard to do it. I think it's really hard to believe in it every day and stay consistent to it. I think there's many opportunities where you can cheat the system and skip steps and take things for granted and get complacent. We certainly are faced with that every day, especially when the team's winning. Do you really have to steam that thing when you know there's 400 people in line, right? Do you really have to go hang that sign perfectly straight when you know the outcome is going to be successful on whatever that event is, right? Do you still have to run that particular program when it's really not driving your business anymore? Do you still have to do the little things? Yeah, we do. We say to ourselves, absolutely. We try to behave every day like we're in a rainy day and not think about where we are in our current station. And I think that takes commitment, I think it takes backbone, I think it takes a real purpose to be true to your values and to execute upon that. I think there are many challenges every day, particularly as I shared that story about, when my phone rings and it's from somebody in New York that's never spent a day in Oklahoma City, but they want to tell us how NBA marketing works, right? It probably does work in most other markets, but not here. We're doing something different here. And we have to be very consistent and very intentional about that. Anyone else? We're good? Okay. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate the opportunity.